So I kind of had something planned for this podcast, and Thursday we got a text message from someone who was part of our crew here in Gainesville for the last 2 years, and it totally ruined what I thought I was going to talk about. So I'm going to start off with that message that we got, just to kind of give you an idea of this is truly why we created the How Bazar. So this is a message from Isaac. When I arrived in Gainesville, I had the same thought as I'm sure every other creative person did. Where are those like me? The skaters, the musicians, the designers. I never thought that my search for like-minded people would be so easy. I didn't understand what community meant before college. South Florida felt isolated from where I stood. I'll never forget how it felt to grow up around crowds that looked at artists like aliens. How Bazar changed that. The world you all built taught me the value of community and what it felt like to be accepted. You all gave me a comfortable space to experiment with my taste and meet others doing the same. It helped me realize that what really makes art special are the people it brings together. The feeling I had walking into the shop, roaming around the night markets, speaking at movie nights, and dancing at the discos is something I will chase and work to maintain wherever I end up. I am endlessly grateful for being able to experience the How Bazar. Thank you for accepting me and bringing me in even when I was too busy for my own good. It makes me so happy for the incoming freshmen to get to be a part of what you all are building. My future is completely unpredictable, though please know that I will always be a resource and a friend. So that's why we created the How Bazar. The basic point is we really got together because we were like-minded people. We believe in community. We believe in people coming together. We believe in true, genuine human interactions and connections. And I think that one of the things that we have to look at and we have to face is that a lot of times genuine community gets co-opted by large systems, all right? And these systems take advantage of all of the value that we bring as individuals, as artists, as creatives, from all of the marginalized groups in this country and in any country. So we have to understand that the value lies in our humanity towards each other. And the easiest way to kind of go a little bit deeper into this is to kind of give you an idea of how we even see the space itself. Like, it's a store, but it's not a store. It's our home. We all own it and work the space. We have friends that help us periodically, and we make sure we pay everyone a living wage if they're helping us do anything. If it's from sewing to working the bar or any of these things, we pay a living wage, and we pay artists an artist wage to make sure that they're able to pay their bills. The biggest thing that I try to share is that if we allow the system around us to dictate how we interact with other people, we are beholden to that system. For example, if you walk into the How Bazar and you treat someone rudely, we don't need your money. Leave. You're in our home. And once we start to realize that the value is in our humanity and the dignity that we provide for each other and share with each other, that's crucial. That is where commerce has devalued all of our relationships, right? You see someone walk into a place and they have tons of cash. They're allowed to be rude to people. They're allowed to treat people with disrespect for no reason at all. So when you think of these things, you start to reevaluate and go, well, I don't think anybody should be treated that way. I don't think anyone should be disrespected that way. I don't care what job you're doing. So if we start to create spaces where we truly understand that every hour that we spend in that space is part of our life, every human should be treated with dignity and respect, no matter where you come from, no matter where you are. And if we start with that basic framework, we can build new systems that are not built on dehumanizing people, exploiting people, and taking advantage of our labor. In that, I want to share another idea that we've kind of like built here at the How Bazar. And it's kind of like a little playful. It's creating space and time. So the idea is those of us, if you're creative, if you work in the arts, if you do all these things at home on your spare time, one of the things that we all have, some of us have time to work on our art. Others of us have space, but no time, right? So the idea is we need to find ways to share space with those that have time. And those that have time need to communicate with those that have space. And now we can create space-time, which is what we need. So what happens is if you're in the rat race and you're like, well, I'm making all this money so I can have a space to do my art. Well, now you don't have time for your art. And then those of us that have time don't have space. So creating space-time is crucial. And that's what the How Bazar for us is we're trying to create space-time. We're trying to say, here, you have the ability and the freedom to be yourself, express yourself, dress how you want to dress, push boundaries, do your art in whatever form or fashion you want to express it. But we're trying to create space and time. And if we all look at it from that perspective, we can start to readjust these frameworks that we've been kind of dropped into. And I also want you to understand that we are not under the delusion that we're going to change the world, all right? We're not delusional here. What we are saying is that we have a choice to either participate or not participate in that system of exploitation. And the most powerful thing most of the time is to refuse to participate. And that's huge. So once we learn that we can actually function outside of these systems and we can create ecosystems that feed each other, these markets are a representation of that. This is an ecosystem that has come together over time. It's people here locally that make things. And by making those things, now they can pay their bills by selling the things that they make directly to people in their community, which in turn feeds that community. So I want to kind of share the idea that it is possible to create personal relationships with everything that you purchase if you create an attachment to the individual that created that and made that. Now we're involved in relationships, not consumption. So those are new ways of kind of expressing or looking at these ideas. So creating space-time is really important. And then trying to actually look at this, another way I try to express it is we kind of think of it as a garden, right? So there are times in your life where you're going to be able to create a really tiny garden where you can cultivate really wonderful relationships with 2 or 3 friends. Other times your garden can get bigger and you can have a large enough garden to feed 10 families. What you have to remember is that all around you, the soil is being poisoned, all right, by the systems around us of exploitation. So you have to be very careful what you put into your soil. You have to be very careful what you allow to be brought into your home. And I also want you to realize that in no way would I ever expect anyone to feel judged by the things that they purchase. Because the reality is this system is much bigger than us. All right? So when you think about these things, it's not, you should be doing better. It's hopefully we can find ways to create gardens. And as we find those gardens, we try to join into that garden and go, hey, can I plant my stuff in your garden? Can I be part of that? Can now this become my community garden? So what I want you to remember is that don't let this bring us down to the point where we just go, there's no way, this is just the way the world is. Refusing to participate is the one action we have. And understanding that any major changes, if it's environmental problems, if it's exploitation, if it's all of these things, have to be dealt with from a larger scale, systemic way. If we don't approach it from a systems problem, we will never address it. So anyone who tells you this is about individual responsibility is not being honest or genuine with you. What we really are trying to do here at the How Bazar is create these tiny little spaces to show you there is a possibility to create a small garden somewhere. This could be in South Florida. This could be all the way on the other side of the country. You can create these small gardens as long as you remember how important it is to take care of your soil, how important it is to work the space yourself, and really understand that what you're creating is a space based on human connection, not based on commerce. All right? So that's crucial. And if we do this, we will challenge these systems. All right? And these systems will try to challenge us. All right? And the last thing I will say on that note is that one of the things that I also like to share with people is location, location, location. We were told a long time ago that location doesn't matter. We're on the internet. Like the internet, you can do this from your house. You can do this from. The point is, we don't have space and we don't have time. You cannot do this from your house. You have to bring people together and you have to land yourself in the center of your community and go, here's the space. Here's the physical space. And this is where I want to have conversations with people. This is where we want to connect with people. So don't allow them to create these unattainable goals of, well, you should be able to go online and create all these relationships. No, you won't. Being in your community, physically in your community, physically in the center of things is the deal. Us being located in this location is a massive, massive, monumental challenge for us just to get this space. And we finally got it. And do you know that there are plenty of spaces around here that were not interested in seeing a space like this ever flourish in this location? So the key is put your feet down, plant yourself in your community, and really start building that garden, or start to build relationships with people who are already starting a garden. All right? And really understand that this is about building communities. And as we build communities, our dignity will not be taken away from us because now we have numbers. And as we have numbers, we can demand more from our local governments. We can demand more from every space that we enter. We can demand more from them. And that's the key. The key is moving away from the idea that what's going to save us is getting a few more dollars in our pocket. What's going to save us is building communities. And that's our only option, especially in the dire situations that we are at this point. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. If anyone has any questions or just wants to say anything at any point in time, and then I'll just kind of I might reiterate the question and then say my response. Any questions, general questions, anything?
What is your advice on getting people to show up, right? Because I feel like everybody is all in favor of the same things, and talk is easy to have an opinion on it. But there's always that gray line of people who just don't trust the space enough to show up to.
Yes.
And regardless of how many friends you have next to you, if everyone's not showing up, it's hard to give those numbers, right?
Sure.
I'm sure that houses are faced enough lows that it's just the same core people. There's not enough people coming in, or new people just aren't getting comfortable enough to check the space out. So my question is, what's your advice on getting people to show up?
So the question is, what's your advice on getting people to show up? Because, the numbers are important for a place to be able to sustain itself in whatever location you land, right? If you land in a location in the middle of a city, you're going to have to find a way to get numbers in that space. I think that in general, this has always been our approach, is the idea of focus. I know it sounds wild, but focus on the core of what you're trying to do. Focus on the individual people. and don't worry as much about the numbers. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to advertise, you have to do all these other things. I totally understand that. But what corporations will never be able to do is create true, genuine human relationships. That is what it takes. And the crazy thing about creating human relationships is that you also have to show up, right? There's a massive part of it that's accountability on your end, which is you got a friend that comes in, they're not feeling well. You got to be able to be there for them. You got to be able to attend to that because they are part of your community. They are part of your family. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to really come to terms with is that we are living in an era where we can choose our families in a way that we could never choose our families before. We really need to take advantage of that. And we really need to build on those families. And when we say build on those families, it's really understanding how really it's about genuine relationships and genuine, mutual attachment, respect, all of these things. And I think, from our end, there's each one of us in this organization does something different. We all kind of feed off of each other. But some of us are just better at being nurturers than others, right? And I think that anytime you create an organization, if we're really creating like genuine culture shifts, that organization has to have nurturers in that organization. It has to have people who truly care about being a good nurturer, right? Like some of us wake up in the morning, we forget that someone was feeling bad yesterday. Others of us, it's still in the back of our brain and we text them, hey, are you good? That's extremely important and relevant. So I guess that's my long answer to that.
So how Bazar has been around for about 2 years. Why do you see the importance of starting the podcast now, and why hasn't it happened before?
Good question. So why hasn't the podcast happened before, and why do you think it's important to start it now? Honestly, it's always been in the back of our minds. The reality is there's 5 of us, and we don't have that much time to start all of these things. And one of the things that's important to us is once we start something, we have to be able to go through and finish that project. So I think that's been a major part of why we haven't started it before. And I think that I also trust the energy of the room in the sense that one of the things that we do when people ask us, what do you do at the How Bazar? It's like, we're not a clothing company. Yes, we do. We have a clothing line. We're not a bar, but we do have a bar. The basic point is what we are is artists and creatives that are trying to sustain a living by creating space and time for other artists. Whatever that takes. If we have to make furniture, we'll make furniture. All right. If we have to start, basically growing wheatgrass inside the space, we will grow wheatgrass inside the space. Whatever we have to do to sustain a space, to create that space time is what we will do. And whatever offshoots come from that, we will allow the organic growth to happen. And that's another part that's important is allowing organic growth and allowing your ideas to just kind of feed off of the energy in the room, right? It's like, you know what? I really want, I'm super attached to discos, right? Like I understand the psychology of why disco music was challenged by the establishment, why the government didn't like disco, why certain groups didn't like disco, because it brought all the minorities together. It was very, very confrontational, and it was a positive thing. At the same time, I'm not going to do a disco every weekend, even though I would love to. So we build off the energy in the room, and whatever our community tells us, we try to facilitate that and create that space. So that's the answer, long answer to a short question. Sure.
I feel like this podcast couldn't have come at a more perfect time because though the community has clearly grown into the space, I feel like it's easy for haters or for outsiders who just aren't open to anything new to say that How Bazar is a cliquey community.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's really just a clique and you gotta be in it and
Sure.
that's a huge misconception.
Sure.
So I really commend you guys on making the podcast and like making it known that all creatives and like anybody of any interest can vocalize their ideas and can, if not join, bring something new into the community.
Yes, 100%. So yeah, to kind of piggyback off that, in this podcast, episode 1, the first thing I want to say in that scenario is all are welcome. And what I also want to say as a caveat to that is that all are welcome not to exploit us. So what I mean by that is I've had a lot of people walk in the space and say, hey, I'd like to sell this here. And I've never seen them in my life. This is a community. This is a family. So the way I look at it is if I've never seen you at an event or you've never been part of the events and you expect me to sell your product, this is going right back to the relationships that we do not want to engage in. This is not about, you can go to plenty stores to sell your product. This is a space where it's about relationships. So as you show up, we get to know your name. You get to know our names. We are all extremely approachable. We all want to talk to everyone we possibly can. I love to talk. Right? And I can talk about anything. Like, it's pretty wild. But, and I love to absorb people's experiences and really understand a deeper understanding about everyone's individual challenges and struggles because it educates me. So I love people and I love having conversations. And the idea is until we create these spaces and go, yeah, we're not a clique. Everyone is accepted. But don't come in here trying to exploit what our community is. So yes, wonderful, wonderful statement. Tim.
So you all are clearly flourishing in this environment, which could seem intimidating. What advice would you give someone who wants to be a part of the community but doesn't know where to start?
Yeah, great question. So the question is, somebody who wants to be part of the community but doesn't know where to start. The easiest way to explain it is you don't have to buy anything from the How Bazar to become part of the How Bazar community. All you have to do is show up, right? So we're open during the day. If you want to come in here and work on your computer, if you want to come in here and hang out, if you want to come in here and play video games, you start to become part of the community. And you introduce yourself. Hey, my name is whatever, and I really enjoy what y'all are doing, and I have some random questions. Ryan's in here sewing all the time. Layla's working on projects. I'm working on projects. You can always, hey, what are you doing? Oh, Ryan will show you some stuff that Ryan's been sewing. And so the point is, we are totally understanding of the world that we live in, where certain people have privileges because of multiple factors, and some don't. And what I want everyone to understand is it does not matter what your privilege is or lack of privilege. The idea of just walking into this space and sitting down, you will be treated with dignity. You will be treated as a creative. You will be treated as an artist. And we want you to be as comfortable as possible to express yourself in any form or fashion that you feel like expressing yourself. Anything else? All right.
What are you most excited for next?
What am I most excited for next? So we're creating relationships locally with different creators, let's say somebody works with metals, somebody who works with, fabrics, all kinds of relationships, creating product. But I'm really excited about us expanding outside of our own small community to other communities on other parts of the globe. So what we're trying to create is these feedback loops where we help places around the world that have, families that are struggling to be able to get a living wage in that community and actually build products and bring them back here and then feed that to our community and then create these chains of relationships. And that's the key, is these are chains of relationships. This is not based on a brand, right? So if somebody goes, oh, my brand is whatever, all right, that's my brand. It's cool. Who does your work? I don't care. They changed CEOs, they change operations managers. that's not the relationships we want. We want relationships where I can make a phone call, I can make a text to the person who's actually processing and making these things. That's the world we want to live in. We want to live in a world where you own your own labor. You are not renting it out to other people. And we can build these relationships. The technology is there to build these infrastructures and to build these logistic, relationships. But we want to try to move in that direction. Like I said, we're just trying to make a garden, and we don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know. We may have to get smaller or larger as we go.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask you, some people will say, like, what is Bazar? So what's the best answer for that, like, concise answer to convey everything?
Yeah, that's a real tough one. Okay, so the best way to put it is we are a group of people who are extremely disillusioned with the world that we have been born into. And we are choosing not to attach ourselves to the narratives that have been fed to us since our birth. I guess is the way I'm putting it. So what we're trying to do is really reimagine the relationships that we can build and change the narratives. And some of these things are like, and as the podcasts continue, like the different episodes, I'll share some books that I've read over my lifetime that have really changed my perspective on humanity in general. I mean, there's a lot of these narratives that we've been born into that we don't even realize we were born into. So that's some things that we'll share like throughout the podcast to kind of get a deeper dive. And the beauty of like the How Bazar is you can come in on a surface level and just enjoy the How Bazar and enjoy what we do and enjoy the shirts and enjoy the clothing that it's not, made by exploitive labor and all of these things. You can also go as deep as you want. Like this place just keeps going and we'll keep sharing with people. And that's one of the things that's important to us is the transparency of what's motivating us. And one of the things that we're very aware of is how large corporations have co-opted a lot of this language of community and relationships. And the only way to shift that is to actually show people what real community looks like. And then it'll be much harder for them to co-opt these words because you won't be able to sell it as easily. And I know it's hard. I mean, I've lived my life, I'm about to turn 41 years old. And it's hard to have hope sometimes. And I can tell you that everyone in our space that's ownership and works in the space and all the relationships we've created, we are 100% genuine in how we want to approach the world and the culture that we're trying to manifest. Anything else? All right, that is the end of episode 1. Actually, before I end it, I'll end it with a simple little sign off, I guess. I kind of wrote this down because I wanted to sign off with something. And I don't know if this will stick as a sign off, but whatever. We will make mistakes, we will learn, and we will improve. Our hearts are true, and we will not give up. For our ideas will endure. Thank you.